Please note that the views expressed on this program are those of the individuals who speak them, and not necessarily those of Portsmouth Community Radio, its Board of Trustees, members, volunteers, or underwriters. Good evening and welcome to Spirit Radio. I am your host, Willie Hassell. Along with my co-host, Lynn Nickerson, we will take you on a journey into the unknown where the paranormal becomes the normal. A journey to a world cloaked in darkness where reality becomes a thin veil. So sit back, relax, and join us as we venture into the shadows, the darkness, the unknown, and back. And good evening once again, and welcome to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. My name is Willie. I am your host. I am your gatekeeper to the dark side, your guide to the realm of the unknown, the unseen, the unthinkable. And she is the always lovely. She is the mystical. She is the mysterious. She is Lynn Nickerson.
Good evening, Willie. It feels like weeks since we've been here, doesn't it?
I know it.
It's only been 2 weeks.
I know. We missed 1 week and...
it feels like we haven't done it for a month or something.
It's like I forget which buttons to push over here.
Oh, don't tell me that.
I've done well so far, though. So.
Okay.
I guess I'm okay. Let me see. No, that's what I forgot, though. I forgot to bring up my introduction here, so I'd have it all ready.
Oh, okay.
So, was there anything you wanted to mention before I go ahead and introduce tonight's guest?
No, I think I'm about ready to...
You think you're about ready? Okay.
Jump right in here.
All right. Let me make sure I got all the buttons ready for him to go, because tonight, once again, we welcome Brad Olsen to the show. Brad is a world traveler as well as an award-winning author and owner of CCC Publishing. His books have reached a wide audience across the country. His work has been reviewed in top publications, and he continues to lecture nationwide on various subjects. He has appeared on dozens of television and nationally syndicated radio shows over the past 2 decades, including 2 episodes of History Channel's Ancient Aliens. His esoteric series, Future Esoteric, in 2013 and Modern Esoteric in 2014, were released with many favorable reviews. Brad is here once again tonight to discuss the final book in his critically acclaimed Sacred Places 108 Destinations series. This is actually part 2 since last time he was on the show.
Sacred Places Europe, yeah.
Yep, Sacred Places, yes. So this book is Sacred Places Europe 108 Destinations. I'll get it. Which was nominated for Travel Guide of the Year by Forward Magazine. And let us now please welcome back once again, and it's always a pleasure to have him on Spirit Radio, Brad Olsen. Good evening, Brad.
Hello, Brad.
Hey, Willie. Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Nice to speak with you both again.
Same here.
How you doing tonight, Brad?
We're doing great. You know, we have so many great conversations, and they extend for the whole hour, and we got to say, well, we got to do a part 2 now.
Yeah, we couldn't get through the whole book.
From last time.
Yeah, we finished off somewhere around France.
We're making the Grand Trunk tour across Europe at the moment.
Yeah, heading south.
And I've been
many stickers on our luggage.
I've been sitting over at the cafe in Paris ever since, waiting to continue.
Well, here we go.
All right.
Well, I just wanted to familiarize the audience again with the book, The Sacred Places Europe 108 Destinations. And I think, Brad, your philosophy of the book is really pretty important. So I just wanted to read what you wrote at the close of the book for the reason of your reasons for writing the book. And you said, I'm quoting, "In choosing sacred sites for this book, I offer locations exclusively oriented toward the positive. A sacred place is defined in part by the best humanity has to offer, as it strives to be both artistically and spiritually exceptional. And it doesn't matter if we're not of the same religious persuasion of those who worship at the site to reap its benefits. If it matters to those who worship at the location, then it should matter to us. After all, we as advanced human beings should know the importance of acceptance and diversity, even if that sacred place doesn't represent doesn't fit into our own religious and philosophical constructs. So if any religious denomination finds a location inspiring or enlightening, or if a person long ago performed actions that helped others, that site represents the best of humanity and made my list of 108 destinations. And I think that is very noble, and I think that was a very good reason to do this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And because I think I had to make that qualification, mainly because some other books that I've seen on Sacred Places sites have also included battlefield sites,
right,
or massacre sites. And while I've been to those places and I find them curious but somewhat macabre, I understand why these authors included them, but they just
they mark history, but all the same, it's nice that you focused on the positive.
Correct. So that's how I try to separate myself from the pack, I suppose, in a way, is just focusing on the good of humanity and the most important sites that have been left behind for us.
Well, I think so too, and also because most of these sites, not all of them, but most of them are very enigmatic. We don't know the whole history on them and the reasons for the constructs, the menhirs and the stone circles. It's still a mystery, and yet they're still held sacred too.
Exactly, and just reading up some more on Karnak before the call, knowing that we want to talk about that again tonight. And I was reading that originally, this is in my book, Sacred Places Europe. I wrote it almost 10 years ago, so I still need to bone up on it once in a while. But back in antiquity, there were over 50,000 of these Neolithic, megalithic stone chambers, or standing menhir stones, or alignment stones, just all over Europe. And today there are fewer than 10,000 left.
Isn't that a shame?
It's great that we even have those 10,000.
Right.
What a story they tell.
Oh, if only we could know. You know, in France, well, Bosnia seems to have the most ancient ruins that we found so far. But talking about the menhirs and whatnot, France, Avrilay, I believe, that dates back 6,000 years ago. And even then, you referenced geomancers described the menhirs as captors and transmitters of energy operating like a sort of earth antenna or antennae. And again, in Karnak, it seems to have the same grid system lined out, lines of these stones. And we don't really know scientifically what it's all about, but we should consider what the geomancers have to say. So,
well, I love what everybody has to say, especially those who are channeling earth energy. And I've been to Karnak, and I've spent several days there. I have to tell you, it is one of those power of place type locations.
Really?
You really just feel it. It's kind of magnetic in a way. I think this is what the ancients must have been picking up on, especially with these over 1,000 of these standing menhirs in a row. And I have pictures in Sacred Places Europe in color and in black and white, as well as a regional map of Karnak, because there's just such a huge concentration of megaliths in this relatively small area, kind of like the size of a county in the U.S. Pretty small, by 20 by 20 miles, basically. And you'll just be driving down the road, and then you'll come across a fence, and behind the fence are another long set of standing stones. It's like trying to make sense of it is difficult, and I think the jury's still out, at least as far as the long rows of standing stones. Some of them weighing 36 tons and 20 feet tall. I mean, just massive, massive monuments.
Yeah, they're in
And
the
all in a
Enigma.
row, sometimes dozens in a row, and then it'll skip and then start again. But again, many, many of them have been lost.
Yeah.
So I don't think the complete picture of Karnak is complete, because we were offline, you and I, Lynn, were trading the image that you came up with, and I'll let you describe that to the audience, about the standing rows and how they create energy, and possibly some kind of harmonics.
Yes.
Frequency, and I think that's what the geomancers were really picking up on.
I agree with you. Now, everybody knows about SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So there's a screenshot saver that is, it's from SETI, and I'm going to put the picture up to the camera, and Willie's going to read what's on the back of it.
Okay. Actually,
Which to me is a modern representation of what the Karnak stones are doing. So can you?
well, actually, I can't put it up and read it, so I got to
Well,
read
if you
it
turn
first.
around and show the face, and you can see it.
I can try that, but then
Yeah.
I can't. Okay, screenshot of the screensaver for SETI at Home, a project in which volunteer idle computer power to analyze radio signals for the signs of extraterrestrial intelligence.
So they are transmitters and receivers. And it's a grid system, and it's got all of these spikes of light shooting out of this grid system that just, to me, just represents Karnak. And I can't help but feel, with the technology that they had to move these huge stones, they must have also known something else, like the purpose and the communication system that they were able to tap into. Don't you think, Brad?
They certainly had some kind of reason and purpose, and I would even agree technology, to do such a massive scale
Yeah.
Neolithic project thousands of years ago. The Neolithic age was from 2,500 BC to 4,500 BC. So we're talking over 6,000 years ago.
Yep.
These were erected, and as I said, they're just gargantuan in size. My claim to fame on Ancient Aliens, one of the episodes that I spoke in, was speaking about a site in Micronesia called Ponape, and there are these megalithic giant stones, but stacked together like Lincoln logs to make
Really?
these enclosures. And so what I spoke of was the ability to use harmonics or tap into frequencies, such as auditive levitation would match the frequency combined with mental energy. And I've learned this recently, too, about how the
Really?
Tibetans did it.
Did they
If I could
hum?
just take a quick second on this, or we got to take a break?
Oh, no, go right ahead.
Well, recently doing some more research on how the Tibetans were able to use auditive levitation to lift giant boulders.
Okay.
And it would basically be 3 concentric circles: drummers, trumpeters, and then many of the monks, all the monks from the monastery would come chanting. And this was observed by Swedish researchers, doctor, and an exploration team in 1933. And I write about this in Future Esoteric, that they came upon the Tibetans, and I even include their drawings from that expedition about these concentric circles with a giant stone right in the middle. And it would be this cacophony of sound, including the horns going off to almost to the point where it was deafening, including the chanting of the monks, would just reach this high-pitched cacophony, which I expect was matching somewhat of the frequency of the stone.
Mm-hmm.
When the trumpets went up and everybody's attention and viewing went up, so did the rock go up. So
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
the mental projection of all these highly trained monks to also assist with the auditive levitation process. So I would venture that the ancients had some of this technology. One last example, if I could give, is the Coral Castle down in
Florida.
Homestead, Florida, just outside of Miami, before you reach the Keys. And this is the only modern megalithic site in the world. It's the only one in the last 1,000 or so years. And it was this little Latvian guy named Edley Scalen. Do you know the story? Lynn?
Yes, I do. And he's only about 5
it's
feet
incredible.
tall.
He'd work at night, and he'd move these giant stones, and he'd create this coral castle. And again, perhaps he was using some form of auditive levitation or some kind of frequency, because he'd always work alone in the dark of night, and in the day, these stones would be up in place.
Well, it had something to do with electromagnetic, because he was an electrical engineer.
Oh, was
That's
he?
right.
Yes, he
right.
was familiar
So he
with
was
electronics and
attuned to
whatnot.
it, kind of like another Tesla.
Yeah.
And this place went up, and he basically died with his secret. But people did ask him how he did it, and the only clue he would give is he said he knew the techniques of the ancient
Ancients.
Egyptian builders and how they constructed the pyramids, which is, once again, a giant megalithic site that nobody can really figure out how it was built.
Yeah, it's still a mystery. He left no papers behind, nothing that anyone could read and learn from. What were you going to say, Willie?
Just another great mystery. And, of course, the Coral Castle in Florida is in my Sacred Places North America book.
Oh, now, did that come out first?
That came out first, indeed, and it did so well that, actually, Around the World came out first, and it did so well as well. It came out in the second edition. North America has come out in the second edition, which is the only one you can find because all the first editions are long gone.
Great.
But second edition is still in the pipeline through the distributor and through CCC Publishing. So those are still available, as well as Sacred Places Europe that we're going to try to focus on finishing tonight.
Good. So, do you think it was electromagnetic? I mean, those are frequencies, and
Yeah.
I suppose that they could be equated to harmonics, do you think?
Well, it's probably several different techniques, some involving technology that harnesses electromagnetics, others, like the Tibetans, purely organic, using highly trained and focused mental abilities as well. And that really kind of was the kicker for me when I found this information out recently. It really connected a bunch of dots, because using the trained mind is one thing, but in the case of Edley Scalen, he didn't have a supporting crew like the Tibetans
Yeah,
did.
it
So
was
perhaps
just him.
he did have some kind of technology. The way I've heard ETs using it and moving bricks around, and there have been witnesses to see it, they have a wand-like instrument, extremely high-tech, of course, possibly in the realm of what Tesla or maybe even Edley Scalen could have developed if they had some kind of past life recall of being a high priest technician who used to do this in past lives.
Who knows? But the Tibetans, I wanted to ask you, you said there were 3 circles. Did you say they were concentric circles?
Well, they were kind of like CCC, all stacked up one behind the other.
Okay. So and the stone was in the very center?
And the boulder was pretty much right in the middle of the circle.
Okay.
Kind of like the way they set up Burning Man from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
It swings all the way around. 3/4 of the way around are all the streets. But then the open playa is like a keyhole. And from 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock is open playa. They don't allow people to camp there. And sure enough, the man that burns on Saturday night is smack dab in the middle. I've been to Burning Man 17 times now.
Is that the same thing as Wicker
It's really
Man?
great. It's coming up in a month and a half. And again, it's using sacred geometry and putting things in the middle of all this activity around it. And I know Larry Harvey, the founder of Burning Man, personally, and he's no stranger to these ideas either. So I kind of love how these little things sort of creep out into the real world, into society, even though Burning Man calls themselves they call the outside world the default world. and that is how people are meant to live without using money, too, which is something I focus on in Sacred Place. In Future Esoteric, I wrote about the end of money in the Utopia section. And the Burning Man was one of the models for a way to have a large-scale event, even based on principles of society, without using money at all. And it's called the gift economy. And I have to tell you, it's one of the most beautiful and fascinating things about Burning Man is to go somewhere where it's very, very difficult to spend money. The only way you can spend any money at Burning Man is to buy ice, and they have one cafe where you can even buy affordable cups of coffee. That's the only vending that's allowed. Nobody is allowed to sell anything or transact money. Of course, you need to buy a ticket, but they have really high permitting fees and other things. But here I am diverting away from our European study again.
That's okay. Where does this Burning Man take place?
This is out in the desert of Nevada, northwest Nevada,
All
on
right.
the Black Rock Desert Playa, they call it. And it's just a big, flat lake bed. And really fascinating because during the last few ice ages, it was filled up with water. And it is only recently drained. Basically, in the Great Basin of Nevada, there is no way the water can drain, so it just evaporates over time and just collects in the last little lakes in the Great Basin. And what's so fascinating about the old Lake Lahoshan, is what it was called, is that on the shores of the old lake, like up 100 feet from the flat playa lake bed, and if you drive through the area, Highway 80 or Highway 50, northwestern Nevada, you'll see all along, around the hills the striations of the different lake levels of Lake Lahoshan, and just cut out the sides of the hills. And in the small town of Lovelock, Nevada, this is another site in Sacred Places North America, is this famous Lovelock Cave. And it would have been about 100 feet above the lake level, so it would have been a great location. And they have found giant, red-haired, mummified bodies that are very, very old, and created all these different types of, for example, sandals, duck decoys made out of reeds woven together that are so unique that they have to be classified in their own special way. And they were all taken out of this Lovelock Cave, and then subsequently they found a couple more at different caves around this massive Lake Lahoshan, which would have been about the size of Lake Michigan, but with a whole bunch of different peninsulas and byways and islands. But a huge mass body of water that even extended up to the Oregon border and out to California a little ways, the far northeastern corner of California. So that they have these red-headed giants that were found in the caves of Lake Lahoshan, and indeed the Winnemucca Indians, including a woman named Sarah Winnemucca, who was a priestess of the Winnemucca tribe, wrote a book in the 19th century to record all of the legends and lore of her people over a long period of time, because all these stories were transmitted orally. They were realizing this may be the last time, and Sarah Winnemucca, being fluent in the language and could talk to all the elders who remembered, chronicled all this stuff. And indeed, they talk about having a war with these red-headed giants a long time ago in antiquity, and they recount that they basically cornered them at the Lovelock Cave after many times of making peace offerings with these people, but they were very warlike, and it never worked out. So the Winnemucca people figured, we have to go to war, we have to kill them, or they'll kill us. And they basically got them into the cave, buried it with boulders, and then lit fires to suffocate them.
Oh my!
And sure enough, that was the end of them.
Now, weren't
then
they?
They were found in the 1930s. This is part of this whole Smithsonian gate.
Yeah.
Smithsonian swoops right in, snatches up all the skeletons, never see them ever again.
Yeah, we've heard that
There's some
story
old
before.
19th century
Yes.
photos that remain that I have in modern esoteric that I include.
Brad, isn't the legend that they were cannibalistic and they were actually eating the Native Americans?
Well, that's right. I mean, they were certainly the enemies of the Winnemucca and the Paiute and the other Indian tribes of the region.
Yeah, and they couldn't make peace with them.
Yeah, and that could be the Good reason to make an enemy. Yeah, they're eating us.
Yeah, they're
so we
eating
might
us.
Go to war with them.
I mean, it was just a matter of battling for land or whatnot. They were very aggressive and carnivorous.
Yeah.
So in this book, does she intimate where these red-haired people came from? These giants?
Never really speculates, just that there were two distinct groups of people, one being more of the Native American type of people, and two were these very distinct, tall, red-headed giants.
And how big were
Which
they?
I should point out is very similar to the very first accounts of Easter Island in the South Pacific, which was discovered by the Dutch on Easter Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And they recounted, too, that there were two distinct type of people. One was actually fair-skinned, with multicolored eyes, and they were the ones who were very reverent of the Mo'oi statue, the very iconic Easter Island statue we've all seen pictures of. But the Pacific Islander type of people were not. And when the first Dutch came, they said everybody was living fairly harmoniously, but as so many of the explorers inadvertently did, they left them some firearms and some other things that by the time Captain Cook came around a few decades later, there had been mass genocide. The long years, which were the Caucasian types, were all gone. All the statues were defaced and toppled over, and even the surviving Polynesians, who had apparently won this bloody civil war, were very devastated, and the population dropped considerably on both sides, but especially the long years, virtually all of them gone.
Brad, we're almost at the bottom of the hour, but I wanted to ask you really quickly, how far back do these red-haired giants go? How old are they? Were the bones?
Well, that's a great story, and I wish we would have had time to have gotten some of them to carbon date them and
they weren't carbon dated,
DNA test them. Now, that science wasn't there when they were discovered, but they presume by the mummification style that some of them could have been old, like thousands of years old. But if the Winnemucca had a living knowledge of them, then I would say more realistically 500-700 years.
Oh, well, that's not so long ago.
Battle that they all finally got killed off.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is Lake Lahoshan was drying up too, so then Nevada was not a lush wetland anymore, but pretty harsh desert.
Yeah.
It had started converting that way.
Another mystery.
But the Winnemucca have clung to their land and still live largely in the town of Winnemucca, which is right when you smack dab in the middle of northern Nevada, halfway across from Utah on the 80. You'll come to Winnemucca, and that's like the start of the Lake Lahoshan Basin.
Well, we are now at the bottom of the hour, Brad, so we're going to take a quick break. And we're talking to Brad Olsen, and we're going to come back in just a couple of minutes, so don't go anywhere. Supernatural Magazine, the UK's newest paranormal magazine, provides support to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. It is the magazine's goal to bring every aspect of supernatural news and research from around the world under one roof to create a universal platform for all those interested in the supernatural. More information is available at supernaturalmagazine.com. You are listening to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience on WSCA 106.1 FM, and we'll be right back after this short break.
And you are listening to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience on WSCA 106.1 FM in Portsmouth West End, where programming is made possible by you, our members, and by the New Hampshire Gazette, the nation's oldest newspaper, which is happy to have company in the struggle to speak truth to power. And from the community calendar, the New Hampshire Art Association is one of the oldest statewide artist associations in the country. In Portsmouth, the group operates the Robert Lincoln Levy Gallery, located at 136 State Street. The gallery hosts a variety of art shows throughout the year, and all shows are free and open to the public. Gallery hours are Wednesday through Saturday, well, it doesn't say, but that's got to be 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's not 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., I know that. And Sunday from noon to 4. Additional information can be found online at nhartassociation.org. And we have some upcoming guests to the broadcast.
Our upcoming guest lineup starts with July 18th. Sherry Brake will be joining us. She's the owner and operator of Heartland Tours in West Virginia, and she's the author of several investigative books on ghosts. July 25th, we're welcoming Richard Southall, who has done extensive research on the Civil War era of the Confederate States, and he'll be joining us to discuss his latest publication titled Haunted Plantations of the South. August 1st, Meryl Fankhauser, who is surf musician extraordinaire, has released a new CD and a couple of cuts that we've showcased here on the program. And Meryl will be taking time out to discuss his paranormal experiences while living in Hawaii. August 8th, Ellen Dugan, who is witch, psychic medium, and author of over a dozen books, will be joining us to discuss her latest release titled The Natural Psychic. August 15, Bill Hall returns, and he'll be talking about the Haunted House Diaries. August 22nd, Mary Joyce, who has a current events and news site titled Skyships Over Cachers, will return to Spirit Radio to discuss her recent release titled Underground Military Bases. And August 29th, our local quintessential storyteller and historian, Roxy Zwicker, is returning for more ghostly tales from the Portsmouth Seacoast area. And let me see, September 5th, Billy Roberts, who's a paranormal author from the UK, will be connecting with us from across the pond to talk about his book, Ghostly Tales, Poltergeists, Haunted Houses, and Messages from Beyond. And that's our guest lineup.
And it sounds like a pretty good lineup to me.
It certainly does.
It certainly does. But tonight, our guest once again on the show is Brad Olsen. And welcome back, Brad.
Welcome back, Brad.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, that is an impressive lineup. Hope I'm living up on my end.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. We wouldn't keep asking you back if you weren't a good guest, right?
Your stuff is so darn interesting. I definitely want to touch on two things in particular, and then we can go wherever else. But definitely Bosnia, the pyramids in Bosnia, and what is near and dear to your heart, Brad, is your Scandinavian heritage and some of those sacred sites. So Bosnia came up first. And as you were writing this book, the pyramids are being discovered, and they are the oldest pyramids in Europe, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And they
the only pyramids in Europe, too.
Yeah. They are so darn old, they outdate the pyramids in Egypt. And it's just mind-boggling how, weren't they just discovered that someone was, I don't know, they took pictures of the hills and then discovered that they were too symmetrical, and they started investigating that these hills were actual pyramids covered with trees and whatnot?
Right. So I have the postcard that kind of tipped off the archaeologist in Sacred Places Europe, and it was a perfectly looking pyramid mountain right there in the valley. And so every summer they're out there and they're doing new excavations. I haven't heard much from this year yet, but last year they got down into the tunnel system quite extensively.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, tunnels that go on several levels for many kilometers that I know at least connect the two, and I do have a diagram of them in Sacred Places Europe, because they did discover them early. Now they're just discovering more of them.
Oh, that's
and they
amazing.
even go down to water levels. So here's the ability to capture water similar to the Great Pyramids being along the Nile River. Once again, it appears that water seems to be an integral part of some of these really old pyramids that may have had some kind of hydraulic function as well.
That is just incredible, because this technology, well, they talk about a leaf that they found on top of the Pyramid of the Sun, one of the Bosnian pyramids. The leaf itself dated back 24,800 years. So they're saying these pyramids are between 25,000 and 30,000 years old. The Egyptian pyramids, they could only date them to about 35,000. And of course, it's thought that they're even more than that, like 10,000 to maybe 12,000 years old. But I mean, this is tremendously ancient.
Absolutely. It's so ancient, they have to put it in a new category called Old Europe. It's true. And it really is. And in Egypt, it's the Osirian Empire, and I hearken them to both be of the survivors of Atlantis, who then embarked on creating pyramid complexes pretty much all around the world on the largest land masses. You have pyramids in China, you have pyramids in Central America, you have the base of pyramids that are very old in South America, you have the earthen mounds in North America, just because they really didn't have stones to work from. And of course, you have many other pyramids up and down the Nile River Valley.
So you think that these were constructed at different periods as people, as there was an exodus from Atlantis because they knew that there was going to be destruction, so that it happened in phases? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, as well as the technology had remained. But look at the resources and energy and effort it would have taken to create these massive structures.
It's unbelievable.
And that the biggest ones are the oldest ones, dating so far back that we just have to clump them together into these distinctions of before Paleolithic, which is the earliest representation of early human expression, mainly in the cave arts of the Dordogne River Valley in France, which I highlight in Sacred Places Europe.
Yeah,
but as far as these pyramids, as well as how they link to the other largest pyramids in the world, there seems to have been a connection to the Earth grid, or the Earth energy, the ley lines that emit Earth energy at like acupuncture points around the world. And before the whole planet, especially the continents, were scarred with development and landscaping that changed the contours, I think it would have been a lot easier to have detected these with just the natural planet and little or no development anywhere. And then that's where they said, okay, this is where we're going to build. And you see it all throughout Europe as well. I'll give you an example. The Chartres Cathedral, also in France, that I highlight in Sacred Places Europe, started as a very primitive pagan shrine. It could have been right next to a well or a spring. And then the first Catholic Church came up. That got demolished, and then the Knights Templar built the Chartres Cathedral, which still stands there today in all its majestic glory.
That is a common thread.
It appears that sacred places are a very old notion, and the ancients were up on this from day one.
Well, it seems that an awful lot of Christian churches were built on old pagan sites. A lot of them were.
Say that one more time?
A lot of the Christian churches were built on old pagan sites.
Right, correct. So you see a continuation on the exact same location of all these different successive cultures.
They're power spots.
Absolutely.
And probably
power place.
Intersecting ley lines, probably.
Most of them do, especially in Europe. And a lot of these ley lines have been charted, and I did my best to put them on my maps in the book. There's a big long one that goes through Germany, several through the UK, and what I think is the most famous ley line in the world, the St. Michael's line, which starts up at Skelling Michael in Ireland, the islands off the southwest coast, where the beehive chambers are, and the small hermitage devoted to St. Michael. Then it comes across the English Channel to Mont Saint Michel up in the Normandy region, and then carries on through the rest of France into Italy, through Greece to the Holy Land. All across this line, a dozen shrines, chapels, grottos, all devoted to St. Michael.
It's not happenstance.
It's just uncanny.
It is uncanny.
That they would all line up that way.
Getting back to the pyramids, Brad, though, did you discover whether or not they've gotten inside the pyramids?
In Bosnia?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, those were the tunnels that I was describing earlier.
Oh, just the tunnels. Okay.
Oh,
I didn't know if there were rooms.
There's a whole labyrinth of tunnels down below there that extend for quite a
I knew there
long
were
distance.
underground tunnels, but I also thought that they led to different sites, but they weren't sure where.
Well, I think one of them goes to Pyramid of the Sun. That one has been established. And another one, at the lowest level, they found spring water. So either to have a freshwater source, or they were using it for some kind of hydraulic function within the pyramid, like the Great Pyramid was used for.
But the point is, they're so massive. What do you suppose their purpose was?
Well, that's a great question, Lynn, and that's really the $50
question, huh? Okay.
But if we're talking about old Europe and the oldest pyramids being the largest, and ley lines at intersection points, and having these large pyramid complexes, and also keep in mind that almost all of them are in series of threes.
That's right. Yeah.
The Great Pyramid in 3, the Bosnian pyramids in 3, the Chinese pyramids near Cheyenne in 3s. And to me, this is the Fibonacci spiral. This is how energy is able to emanate out. And that is the way. That's why the smaller of the 3 pyramids in Giza is slightly off. They're not all in a straight line row. One is off. If you do the math, you create the Fibonacci sequence out of it.
I hadn't heard that. I just heard the alignment with Orion's belt.
Well, that is certainly another
possibility,
and perhaps benefit of doing it that way, that they were some kind of guide. This is like Graham Hancock and Oval.
Right. Well, who knows?
John Anthony West.
You got to speculate. Who knows? What about the huge stone balls that were found? They were found there and in Central America, and apparently those are the only 2 known locations where these huge stone balls exist.
Did you say balls or vaults?
Balls, B-A-L-L-S.
The balls. Maybe you could describe that. Were they just...
They're gargantuan, and I had only heard of them existing in Central America. I mean, they can be as tall as a person, 6 feet in diameter.
Oh, yeah, I do know about them you mean Panama and Costa Rica and Nicaragua?
But they've also found them in Bosnia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And they're almost perfectly round, right?
Yeah, they're perfectly round.
Stone.
Wow.
So I just find that very bizarre. What the heck were those things for?
Right, and they're massive.
And it does say something about one researcher thinks the strange, perfectly shaped balls were utilized as some kind of energy spot by the prehistoric Europeans. Maybe just another form with the same purpose as the menhirs. How do you pronounce that? Menhirs?
Menhirs, yeah.
Menhirs, okay. It could be just another form, but still enigmatic. Who knows?
Wow, that's great. And so, to your knowledge, just in Central America and Bosnia were the balls found of this size?
Those 2 locations.
It is somewhat reminiscent, too, of the Plain of Jars in Laos, where like these balls would seem too big to us, but maybe to giants they were just ball bearings or something.
Bowling balls.
Plain of Jars in Laos, they're just massive containers, megalithic in size, way too big for humans to use, but just left there on the landscape, like so many other mysteries.
Containers of what kind? Made of what?
Kind of
Stone?
like a vase, rectangular, hollowed out in the middle, as tall as a man.
I mean,
Sometimes bigger.
are these made of stone, you mean, or?
right out of stone.
Oh, okay.
Directly out of stone.
What about to store grains or something?
Yeah, that's exactly what conventional archaeologists would say, but it would seem to make them, especially, why go to all the trouble of doing it megalithic when you could do them small size, which would be more practical for small humans.
Must have been big people. That's what I would
People,
Those
big
giants
cars,
again.
big ball bearings,
think. Or big ball bearings.
big pyramids.
Did you get to Scandinavia at all?
Oh, you bet. I'm half Scandinavian myself, so
Yes.
had to make the voyage there when I was working on Sacred Places Europe, and I still have extended family there.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, Norway.
Oh, wonderful. Well, then, can you touch on a couple of sacred spots that you visited while you were there? Like, did you go
Sure.
to Iceland or?
For me, I'm big, tall, blonde, white guy. A lot of people think I look kind of like a Viking, and I
Probably
guess so.
are.
It's my exploring, adventurous spirit in the modern age. So I was very fascinated with Viking sites, and some of them were very much sacred places, such as this graveyard in northern Denmark, Lindholm Helm, if I'm pronouncing that right.
It was H-O-J-E.
Got like umlautens and lines through the O's, so
Yeah,
my
H-O-J-E.
Scandinavian might be a little rusty. But it was great because some of them were in the shape of a longboat
Oh, yes.
that the Vikings sailed on and were so successful with. So to see like a life-size replica of one of their longships was great. And then the different various ways that they would cremate the body and leave runes on there, and just little clues about how they viewed the afterlife. And such a rich mythology of the Old Norse has just long been a fascination of mine.
Yeah,
So to go there and travel to many of these sites was such a joy.
Oh, I bet
And
it
of course,
was.
to have the rendezvous with my long extended family. And I was the first American ever to go back.
Oh.
And they were just so joyed to see me come. And then he took me around, and even up to the old family farm
Really?
in Norway. And we were going up this road. There's just giant boulders next to the road and pine trees. It's like, God, this kind of reminds me of the high desert of California in the mountains, Lake Tahoe. Nothing much grows there. And we get there, and he's like, this is it. I'm like, this is it? How can you grow anything? It's all rocks and tundra.
What
Boy,
did they
had
grow?
a hard life, and I see why they came over.
What did they
Scandinavia
grow?
went from one of the poorest regions of Europe 100, 150 years ago, when all the migrants came out, including my ancestors, to one of the richest. And you know why?
Why?
You guys know why.
I'm not sure.
Stuff they yank out of the North Sea. OIL.
Oil.
Oh, that
Yeah,
stuff.
and then it's a very expensive country to travel in now, especially Norway, which is still on the King Harold, their own form of currency. They're not on the euro.
Oh, are they
It's
really?
one of the most expensive beers in the world. I think about $10.
Oh,
to get a draft
jeez.
somewhere.
Hard to get drunk on that, huh?
Unlike Costa Rica, where you can get a nice beer for 50 cents.
Yeah.
How about in Sweden? Did you get to go to the mounds of Gamla Uppsala?
I sure did, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that place, boy, we were talking about power of place.
Yeah.
You just feel it. It's just so magnetic when you come upon these massive mounds. And the backstory behind it was there was this great pagan temple, one of the best, huge, most revered pagan temples. And, of course, when the Scandinavian people were becoming Christianized, and there were many wars, battles fought over it, finally, of course, became a Christian nation. But one of the main things that the earliest Christians wanted to do is tear down that pagan temple.
Yeah.
Because it was grisly. There was a big oak tree there. They would hang people and leave them.
Yeah, I read that.
Blood
Hang
rituals
people
and
and
so forth.
animals, and every 9 years they'd kill 9 males.
Yeah, Yeah, kind of reminiscent of some of the Central American people, that they would have these dates where a lot of blood would have to be shed to appease the gods.
Yeah, that is somewhat pagan, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about at the end of the hour, Brad. Is there how about the Basque Country, real quickly? Guernica? What amazed me about this, in particular, their language, Euskara, it is not the only, it is, which is not distinct from French or Spanish, but apparently unrelated to every other language, both modern and historical, in the entire world. And then you go on to talk about, well, the Basque have some unusual blood types that are found nowhere else on Earth, and that their closest genetic markers show a very strong relationship with the Celts. So, did you get to go there, and who are these people?
I did go there, and it's a beautiful region of both France and Spain. The Pyrenees Mountains straddles between the two, and they're just very unique people. They're even a little bit different looking, like they'll have red hair and multicolor. So you can see the gene connection to the Celtic people as well.
Yeah.
But their language is totally unique. There's nothing like it, nothing based on it, nothing to reference it to. So some of the Atlantis theorists think that this too was a throwback to those times of pyramid building and the great seafaring nation of Atlantis.
Incredible. It's such a mystery. Well.
Once again, Brad, we're out of time.
We ate up the whole hour, Brad.
Just like the snap of a finger, went by so quick.
Almost, yeah. It's always great to talk to you. And websites, appearances, anything like that?
Yes. Well, if your listeners would like to learn more about me, bradolsen.com, OLSEN, how I spell my last name. Find my books on Amazon, or come on over to cccpublishing.com, and we have the Google Books app, so you can read and browse the books. You can order them off the site, and if they come off the website, they go through my office, and I have an opportunity to sign copies for anybody who orders my books off of CCC Publishing. I can't sign my other authors, of course. If you want to follow me more on the esoteric subjects, esotericseries.com, which is a bit of a site still under construction, but I have my Esoteric Series YouTube channel, as well as Esoteric Book Series on Facebook. You can like that, and I always post the most relevant link, as well as Sacred Places 108 Destinations on Facebook as well. Anytime I find archaeological stories of interest, I post them there.
Oh, great.
So that's the best way to keep abreast of what I'm up to.
Great.
Okay, very good.
Well, thank you so much again, Brad. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you once again, Brad.
Oh, thank you guys. Always a pleasure to speak with you both.
All right.
Okay, have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night, too.
Thank you. Okay, that was Brad Olsen, and that was another episode of Spirit Radio, The Paranormal Experience. And Craig Mosier with the Graveyard Shift is coming up in just a couple minutes.
All right, and thank you everyone for listening, and good night.
In this one of many possible worlds, all for the best or some bizarre